What's with all these badass women in movies and TV who still need to be rescued by men? Or the ones who can defeat armies of muscle-bound henchmen bare-handed, but have to do it in skin-tight suits and high heels? And what's up with those badass women who never wanted or needed a man until our suave hero sexed her up, and then she dies? Welcome to the Outrider Podcast's 7-part series, Problematic Badass Female Tropes. I'm your host, Jason Quinn Malott, and I'll be talking with the writer, performer, and all-around badass who identified these tropes, my friend Jenn Zuko. So strap on some pasties and a merkin, and let's do this thing. So here we are for episode 4 of Problematic Badass Female Tropes. And this time is the meaning of his life. I don't have a snappy name for it this week. I've been trying.
You know what? I bet we're going to come up with one. I bet by the time we're done talking today, some weird thing will come up. I mean, we had 2 last time, so.
Yeah, we had a whole smattering of them last time.
Make up for it this time.
So the meaning of his life trope. Do you want me to summarize it again real quick, or do you want to take it? I kind of like that. Yeah,
go ahead and tell me what you think it is, and I'll correct you if you're wrong.
So basically, what it is you have a badass woman who does badass things, but as soon as the male hero gets the thing that he's supposed to get, she's useless and goes away.
Yeah, well, that's her only purpose the entire time.
And that was the thing. This one, as I was reading through it, I did not have any problems with it at all, except that I don't know that Arwen needed to be a subtrope. I think she fits pretty well right into the main one.
Oh, it's definitely a meaning of his life kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of a medieval version of that. It's the sort of like lofty lady love on the pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I just like that I called something an Arwen syndrome. I just think that's so great because that's bugged me for so long. A lot of these tropes I've come up with because stuff from the things that I've loved growing up, that's otherwise great literature or great, entertainment of some kind, just bugged the shit out. Like the Marion thing, I was like, this is bugging me, and I'm not sure exactly why. It only took writing about it for me to actually pinpoint what it is that was bugging me so much about it. So. Anyway, yeah. So you nailed it. That's
of course.
That's good. I would add that it's the badass character version of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
Yeah, I was looking at that because I was very curious about that type of stuff. So of course I went to our source material site, the tvtropes.org website. Yes,
that's a great site.
And I was very curious to read about, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which I had read, with, what's his name, Nathan Rabin's article all those years ago.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I understand the problem with the Manic Pixie Dream Girl thing. But, there's some.
Yeah.
You're a Manic Pixie Dream Cat now.
Hey, you're not the meaning of our life, little kitty cat. She's like, you are wrong. You're absolutely wrong about that. I am the meaning of his life.
She is the center of the universe, which is probably why the white one is such a demon. She's like, fuck you, pay attention to me. So anyway, I don't know. To me, it seemed like, the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, goes back, centuries, that idea. The free-spirited woman that comes along and saves the moribund, douchebag hero.
It's a long and venerable tradition, especially in literary fiction.
Right. But it seemed that Rabin's article, and I'm kind of glad he distanced himself from it, later on, almost seemed like he was just pissed off at Natalie Portman and who was that actress that was in Elizabethtown with?
I don't know.
Because that was like the movie that set him off. Elizabethtown was the one that set him off.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
But he
it was the medic It was the
Right. That was that Elizabethtown movie. It had Legolas in it. And,
right, yeah, Orlando Bloom.
And what the hell was her name? I can't remember her name. Anyway, I should have looked it up here when I was. But it also seemed like he was kind of also just going after Natalie Portman, because of particularly that one with.
You are woefully un-IMDb'd right now, aren't you?
Well, dude, it's been this whole thing lately. Like, I was struggling to remember fucking FDR. I was struggling to remember Roosevelt the other day. I think I'm losing. The memory's gone. And maybe I'm just drinking too much. And
you're losing your mind and your heart on. God, what do you do? Drink some wine.
Yeah, drink some wine.
Sip some wine.
What was that movie? That Garden State. Duh.
Oh yeah, Garden State. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yep.
But Garden State doesn't really fit with the manic pixie dream girl trope. Not entirely, because she doesn't go away at the thing.
No, but her entire function though is to change his life. She has no other function besides that. And that's really the center of what the manic pixie dream girl is. Although I would say that the meaning of his life trope character is even. See how I'm bringing us back? I'm bringing us back. Well,
that's your trope. You got to explain it.
It's more unfair because it's like because the character is such a badass. It's this bait and switch aspect of this trope is more unfair than the manic pixie dream girl, because it's like, oh, she's so strong, she's so awesome. Oh, well, she's not really. She's just colored that way so that we can understand why why Mr. Douche Nozzle is in love with her. Like, we get that's why, but that's the only reason why. It's like she's being painted a color called badass instead of actually being an interesting character. And I mean, I use Padme Amidala in the Star Wars prequels as an example in my article, and she's fucking killed when she's done doing what her function is, which is only to change Anakin
and give us Luke and Leia
and give us Luke and Leia. Well, the minute she does that, she's dead.
Gone.
That's it. She has no further purpose. She never had a purpose, so that's the thing. Like, when you see at the end, it's like, oh man, why'd she have to die? She was such an awesome character. Well, no, she wasn't. She was a device, not a character.
Yep. And I was particularly, that was the thing. And I hate to bag on poor Hayden Christensen, because
I don't. Let's do.
Well,
the poor guy, he dropped out of show business because all the Star Wars nerds, all the neckbeards were like, this guy sucks.
And it's like, you know how hard it is? You know how hard it is for even experienced actors to act in front of a green screen? And you got this kid trying to do it?
Plus, listen to that fucking script they gave him. I know. Poor kid. Yeah. And he sucked, but poor kid.
Well, even to a certain extent, Natalie Portman sucked in that. Her stupid kind of dual accent thing. Yeah. Everybody kind of sucked in the prequels.
Well, allow me to brave the neckbeards myself online, but
they don't
actually
listen to
me. The old trilogy's scripts really kind of suck ass as well. So
true,
it's not
a little weak, but
whatever. I love them, but Star Wars, I love you.
It was particularly either, of course, I think part of it was the script, a big, huge, like 90% of it was the script. The other 10% was the fact that little Hayden Christensen did not have either the skill or the knowledge to challenge the director in the action or do something with that script to give Anakin the appearance of any kind of likability. Because you're absolutely right in this article. Some
kind of depth, yeah.
You look at Anakin, it's like, why the fuck would this woman fall in love with him?
Yeah, there's no reason. None.
Why?
None. Nope. She wouldn't.
None
That's
at
why.
All.
She would not.
And that's what
because
I think
he's a Jedi.
And that's what makes your this example of that trope particularly using Padme as the example of the trope is particularly egregious. Now, I've never read the Lord of the Rings stuff, so I don't know anything really about Arwen except what I've seen in the movie.
Yeah, they gave a lot more to her in the movie, but actually it really emphasized the fact that that's what she is the meaning of his life.
Right.
Like, just the fact that they scrambled so much to give Arwen more to do They basically just took a couple of one-off male elf characters that we encounter along that long journey, and they just gave it to her instead of having it be, one night stand Glorfindel or whatever.
Sure.
So they just gave it to her instead, which is easy. That's, I would have done that too. But it also just emphasized how useless she is, except as a catalyst for Aragorn and his stuff.
Right. But at least with Aragorn, you get some sense of why she might love him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
He's actually
absolutely,
heroic and gallant and brave and
even though he's immortal and she's not, but
Right.
But yes, no, we do get a little bit more of a sort of an equal footing. But the thing is, we don't get to know her.
Right.
And in the book, she doesn't do anything. She's literally given by Galadriel as a prize to Aragorn. I mean, we know from the appendices and from other things that he says throughout the story that they have met and they're in love already, and they're kind of like promised to each other kind of thing.
Right.
But she doesn't do anything. It's this kind of sort of old tradition, though, from like medieval troubadourship.
Yep.
That kind of thing, like the knight singing songs about his lady love and, tying her ribbon on his lance to go do heroic deeds. And she just sits there and the closest she gets is to sit in the stands and watch him do his tournaments kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, she doesn't really do anything except to give him, it's almost like a reverse fridging sort of thing. It's like her existence is to spur him to heroics.
Right.
But that's the only reason why she exists.
We just avoid killing her.
Yeah, we just don't kill her until the end. Until she's had the twins, then she's done, useless.
That one instant. So,
well, and I also look and see. I was actually talking with both my editor and my partner about that particular example, and that look at how Padme turns so simpering, and like the minute she gets pregnant, she's useless. The minute she actually marries Anakin, she's pretty useless.
Yeah.
She's only a badass when we were first getting to know her, when we were first like Anakin trying to court her kind of thing. Once she's possessed, once she's married and basically owned by him, then she has no more badassness left at all. She barely appears. She does nothing.
Right.
She has no strength anymore.
And it really is kind of disturbing that mode really informs real life gender roles more than any of the previous tropes we've seen so far. I mean, college, women used to go to college not for a BA or a BS, but for their MRS. Some still do. Right. Right. They go in and they do this major. They do this stuff. They have some interest. They meet a guy who, because of our particular gender role situation, is going to be in a major or something like that, who is going to earn more money.
Yep.
And
it's nice to have a little woman at home who has a brain, someone you can actually talk to about things. But not
that is unironically true. It's nice to have someone at home, but they should also have a life outside of the fucking home. Right? Not Yeah, no, you're right. This is actually one of the 7 tropes. There's a couple of them, I think, that do this more than the others, but this is one of them that's like, it kind of informs our social structure. It kind of informs our culture and it informs our gender norms a little bit disturbingly, doesn't it? Yeah, this, like I said, this is the first one of ours of the 7 the ones we've talked about so far. This is the one that really kind of has the most direct correlation to current gender roles.
Do you think that's because we see this so often and it directly influences the way young people think they need to be acting?
Well, in fact, until the 80s, this was kind of the thing. Women would have interesting lives prior to getting married. And then once they got married, it was just the home and the kids. And women that did not do that were extraordinary, were different. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, for one,
Right. Yep.
But the majority of women, the majority of women, though, kind of disappeared the way Padme does in this trope, and disappear into the marriage, into the house, into the kids. And it wasn't until, like I said, the 80s when we started because of the Reagan tax policies, voodoo economics and everything like that, we actually needed to have dual incomes for a family to survive.
That's interesting.
And that's when that gender role of the man is the breadwinner, the woman stays at home and cares for you. That's really when that began to break down.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until we were in our.
You think it was really then, or do you think it had something to do? I mean, I would say the sexual revolution of the late 60s, early 70s, maybe the civil rights stuff.
That started the questioning of the mode,
Uh-huh.
but it didn't. But before the 80s, no one was forced to deviate from the traditional gender stereotypes. No one was forced to do it until the 80s, just to survive. The women who could violate the gender roles had the privilege to do it.
I see. That's an interesting.
Because they had a husband or a situation or an economic career, an education. They stuck with the education long enough that they could do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so
or
there
they
was,
were on an
and so when you would,
right.
And so let's take the Ginsburgs in particular, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Love her. She's fantastic. But because of the situation she was in, she was able to finish her law degree, go in and practice law. Her husband was a practicing lawyer as well. And that was an oddity prior to the 80s, right? Most women that would go into an education, did not have that drive. She would have met her husband and just wandered off into the family thing. And Ruth was like, nope. And continued to do her thing, but she had the privilege to do it because they had not privilege, but also she had the background and the upbringing to do it. She was pushed into challenging it. Did you see her biopic that they did recently?
I didn't see the movie. No,
really,
I heard really good things about it. Yeah.
But so like my mother, for one. She has an associate's degree in communications that she got after high school, but that was as far as she went with her education because she married my dad and disappeared into the house.
Yeah, my mom did the same thing, but then she went back to college when I went to college.
And then so throughout the 70s, my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
And that was by choice. There was also a gender role thing. She didn't think to challenge it. The 80s, my sister was born in 76. My mom was still a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. It wasn't until the early 80s that my mom was forced back into the workforce because, economically it was becoming harder and harder for my dad to be able to support a family of 4.
Well, I guess in the 70s too, it was still like a normal thing to expect a woman when she got married or when she got pregnant to quit her job. Like that was just kind of a normal thing. Like you'd hire your secretary, but then like she wouldn't work while she was pregnant. Like she would just leave if she got, like she just wouldn't have a job. It was just no normal thing to expect.
And there wasn't, and so it wasn't, I don't remember when maternity leave type of stuff was passed exactly as far as a mandated thing, but it wasn't that big of a deal for my mom's generation.
I think it was scarily recent. I think that I don't know when the years were when that happened, but I think it happened. I don't know. I think it was like really kind of surprisingly recent, but
yeah.
Again, I am not very well researched on this right now. I should have been researching this. This is interesting.
But
to connect that with this trope, that's really fascinating. So this whole, like, do you think that this social structure had to do with showing this trope on screen and in our books, or do you think it's the other way around?
Well,
or do you think
I think that in an era where you had, there are a couple of things going on, I think, from the social side of it, right? Now, prior to the 80s, there were some good things and some bad things with traditional gender roles, as there always are. You've got to take the good with the bad for everything like this. It's good to have a parent, one or both, with the kids all the time. Because you and I, the reason we were latchkey kids in the 80s, because our mothers were going back to work and there was not a daycare type of infrastructure really in place.
Mm-hmm.
Not as robust as there is now. There wasn't a...
We were more free range.
We were very free range. But, when I was younger, before my mom went back to work, when I grew up, yes, my dad was always away. That was a drawback. Traditional gender roles. Why couldn't my mother have been the breadwinner? Well, at the time, it wasn't important to educate women that well. Men got the jobs and the education, and they did whatever. But then again, on the other hand, that did provide some of that home stability that you don't have when both parents are working. So, that's the whole thing. So this trope, in and of itself, if you strip the gender out of it, where one person, how it ties back to this is where one person is the heroic breadwinner outside of the house, and the other one is the domestic, just concerned about the family thing. That provides a certain amount of balance and stability. Now, gender roles come in and they say, well, the man has to be the hero, the woman has to be the homemaker, and that's it. And that's bad. That's restrictive. I
think one thing that's the damaging thing about the trope, though, is that it's as though the female badass just isn't really a character. She's a device. She's doesn't even have an important role like taking care of a home, which is a big job. It's not even like that. It's like she's just there to give the male hero an internal change, or to teach him something about life, or to allow him to believe in himself, or something like that. But she's not even taking a role like homemaker. It's not even that. It's like she doesn't exist except to inspire him, and she doesn't exist in any other way.
Right. And I think that's what's insidious about it, is where I was going, is that with this trope, what you have is it's hearkening back to that prior setup and punishing the woman for being modern of this era. So here's Padme, who's a badass. She's a queen. She's a diplomat. She's a warrior.
She's a politician.
She's fucking cool.
Yeah, and she's hot.
And then she gets married and she dies.
Yeah, basically.
Why? Because in this held up to the mirror of our current status, where both men and women have to work in order to survive, because income inequality and all this stuff has completely destroyed the practical ability to adhere to classic gender roles, but at the same time still demands classic gender roles. And so this particular trope is sitting there, kind of almost trying to push back and say women just, if Padme hadn't been a badass, if she just had the kids, she'd still be alive.
Maybe, right. Although once she has the kids, she dies.
Right, they had to kill her for being a badass and trying to be a mom.
Yeah, it's almost like she's being punished for being so awesome.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas the Arwen syndrome subtrope is more like, we don't really get that she's a she doesn't really have anything badass necessarily that we know about, because she's so absent. She has a lot of very lovely physical beauty that we get to hear about from the male hero, but we know much less about her. She's much more absent the whole time.
Yep. At least in the movie we get Liv Tyler, which, I like.
Hey, everyone's got, as a bi woman, I am saying that Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, I say yes, and I say yes. So hey, okay, yep. And
I have a particular soft spot for Natalie Portman. I always have.
Oh, she's lovely, and I don't like her weird little accent that she tried to do as the queen, and I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
Still,
I have myriad problems with the prequels, though, so we can just go ahead and have another entire podcast about that. So.
Well, with me, it's like if somebody says, we're going to watch a Natalie Portman movie, I go, when? Can we watch it twice?
Which one? And can we watch
which one? Does it matter? No, it doesn't matter which one it is.
Nope.
Just
that's fine.
Natalie Portman, cool. Yeah, I like to look at her.
That's fine. Nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
And like I always say in these articles too, it's like there's nothing wrong with loving these movies. Although I would question your loving the prequels, but I'm not. You know what? It's fine. You do you. You do you. But as long as we look at this stuff and see what it's doing to us, do you know what I mean? Like what is this saying to, especially like someone like me who grew up as a sort of tomboy and then a goth and like trying to like being kind of confused about what being a badass woman even was necessarily.
Right.
And so like being so spoon-fed this kind of stuff over and over again, and
Yep.
it's so ingrained, and it's almost like we don't even know we're structuring our lives around these tropes sometimes. So it's just important to kind of open your eyes and be like, okay, so I see this for what it is. This is a problem, and okay, well, good. Now I know. Knowing it's half the battle. G.I. Joe. And so we can then move on, hopefully, from there and demand better in the future, but not, let's still love Natalie Portman, because why not?
So I was thinking, and I was trying to think and trying to come up with other examples of the meaning of his life. Who else fits it besides Arwen and Padme? I mean, we could go back to the spawning trope of it, but it doesn't really fit. The manic pixie dream girl,
that's sort of the non-badass character version of it,
right? Which of course, according to TV tropes, is the manic pixie dream girl that comes out of the blithe spirit trope.
Oh, the blithe spirit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course, we could also pair up the meaning of his life trope with the hyper competent sidekick trope.
Sort of, except she's not even a sidekick. She's just a device. She's just there to inspire the hero. She doesn't help him really.
Right, but when Padme is a badass, she is the hyper competent. She does have some relation to the hyper competent sidekick, because she is more. Mm-hmm. She's not a Jedi, but she's more of a badass than Anakin.
God, yeah.
Right?
Jeez. No shit, right?
She is, but since she's not the central character, she's not Darth Vader, or not going to be Darth Vader. She is more of a sidekicky type of character.
She's a pivotal character, but not a,
Right, so she does fall into that hyper-competent sidekick thing.
Yeah, for part of episode 2 especially, she does, because she kind of fights by their side a little bit.
Yep.
But she doesn't really even rise to the level of sidekick even. But yeah, she does for some of that movie, I would say. Especially that arena scene that I described in the article. Yeah.
Especially that
What's that movie? Legendary? With Tom Hardy as the badass twin brothers that are horrible gangsters and kill everybody and get into fights. There's a meaning of his life character in that one.
You don't mean the Boondock Saints?
No. It's very Boondock Saints-esque. And now my partner's listening to this. He's like yelling at.
What does he say it is?
He's yelling the title of this movie at his phone right now, listening to this, and I can't think of it. See, we're woefully under IMDb'd right now in this episode. Yeah. It's so terrible. You know what? Hey, listeners, we're not doing any fucking research right now, okay? You all look this shit up.
Why should we do any research? What the fuck is research?
I did all the research for the article, but I wrote it. Go read the article. I think it's called Legend or Legendary.
Tom Hardy.
But there is a character that's very, very like this, and she's a badass in that her personality is very badass.
Yeah, it's just called Legend, apparently.
Legend, okay. That's what I thought. See, I was right the first time. I should just trust my brain.
Which, when you first said it, I was thinking, what, that Tom Cruise fantasy movie that everybody hates from back in the 80s?
Oh, God. Everyone hates it? I thought people liked that one. I never saw it.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
All the more reason for you to come visit me, because I have it on DVD.
Oh, good Lord. You're such a nerd. That's great.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a character like that in that one.
In that Tom Hardy movie?
Yeah, the love interest is exactly this trope. She's not a warrior type, and it's not a geek culture type movie, but she is this trope for sure.
Oh, the hyper competent sidekick?
No, the meaning of his life.
Oh.
And that's the first one that popped into my head when you're like, who else besides Padme and Arwen are these characters? Well, I mean, if you look at just like I said, the old venerable tradition of the troubadour, the sort of knight in shining armor type of old tales, there's always an Arwen in those
right
stories. I mean, that's actually literally where the whole Arwen Aragorn thing is from. It's from like the Mabinogion and all the old sort of like pre-swashbuckling kind of stories.
But those don't tend to rise to badassery, those women. Now, Arwen in the movies sort of does, because she has the whole ride with Frodo. And, you know.
I think that's probably why I made that a subtrope, is because those women are so not present that we don't really get to see their badassery necessarily.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's why I actually made that a subtrope. Because you were saying like maybe it's not even a subtrope, maybe that's just part of the main one. But I think that because of the particular badassery I'm trying to talk about, that's why I decided it was a sub as opposed to a dom.
Right.
Dominatrix. So I'm trying to think of other ones. You're the one who like isn't the geek culture dude, so like what can you think of more?
Well, don't they kind of do something like this with the Jinx character from one of the Bond movies that Halle Berry played?
Oh yeah, yes. In fact, a lot of Bond girls are like that.
Well, a lot of the Bond girls are just there.
Well, they represent number 7. I'm only here for my vagina.
Well, sometimes. I mean, we'll get to that one when we talk about that one. We'll get to the specifics. But most of the Bond girls really don't even... Pussy Galore is unique, which is why she gets a trope. But like...
If it's a Bond girl that is badass...
But Goodnight isn't really fit as a badass. You know, Jinx does. She's a
Goodnight should, because of her position. Not her sexual position, but her.
Whenever you're talking about Bond, you have to understand that pretty much anything you say about Bond will have a slight double entendre to it, right?
Touch me there again, you'll have to marry me. Like, what's her face? Who is the sister of the painted gold chick in Goldfinger? Tilly.
Yeah.
I think any Bond girl that is badass when we first meet her definitely falls under this, because she like any Bond girl, like most Bond girls, are disposable. Like, she does not last long at all. She lasts as long as her as her sort of existence. But the thing is about
Grace
Bond girls.
Jones is one of these? No, she can't be. She's the bad guy though. Or no, she's
a villain.
No, she starts off as a villain, but
she turns into, this is part of the only here for my vagina trope. But I would say the
really
Bond girls,
Grace Jones' character fits into that one. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, she does have that. Ooh, yeah,
she has
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Bond kissed me, so of course I love it, because it's Bond. He has the magical power of the Bond hero that now I'm a wilting flower under his. But what I would say about the Bond girl thing, though, in particular, is that they sort of fall under this. The badass ones do, maybe the I was thinking that what's one of the Pierce Brosnan, and she's on the motorcycle with him trying to get out of.
Michelle Yeoh. I don't remember the name of her character, But
I also would posit, though, because one of the main things about the meaning of his life trope is that the badass character changes the hero. Like, they change his mind.
Nobody changes Bond. Nobody fucking changes Bond.
Nobody. I mean, they tried to a little bit when Pierce Brosnan first came on the scene, because they're like, Bond is kind of horrible, so let's make him a little bit more like a human being. The time
that they really tried to change Bond was the first Tim Dalton movie.
Oh yeah, well yeah, and I would say too with the George Lazenby.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the first one of that.
So she's the badass, and she changes him so much that he marries her. Hey, spoiler alert, by the way, listeners.
Yeah, come on. If you haven't seen On Her Majesty, if you haven't seen the
shit.
original On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby, then you just need to get caught up. So fuck you and your spoiler
there is
warnings.
So much about the man in the butt chin.
Oh man.
Fucking Telly Savalas. So good. I would say that she's an example of it because she does change Bond. Bond actually marries her.
Right.
The fact that Bond actually fucking marries her. Or Vesper in Casino Royale.
In the more recent ones with Daniel Craig.
I'm thinking the books too because I've read the books.
Yeah. I read some of the books.
I'm a nerd. I read these books when I was in fucking junior high, which is, again, what I need to bring up yet again is that I loved these books in junior high, right? So here is me. I am 14, 15, 13 even, reading these books. I'm trying to grow up into some kind of a strong woman. And I'm reading these books.
And your example is a Bond girl?
Right. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, you're fucked from the start right then. I mean,
this is what exactly, right? So, like, and of course I'm identifying with the dude much more than anything else. And even like Doctor Who, I'm like, I don't want to be the companion. I want to be the fucking doctor because it's way more interesting. So it's like, this is why I'm sort of, I feel like I'm kind of doing God's work here. I'm like, hey, look, let's open our eyes. Let's realize what's going on. Let's understand and see how it affects us as real people, as real badasses of all genders. So. Yeah. But anyway, I would say Vesper is an example of this trope, but I don't think that most Bond girls are kind of only there for their vagina, which is number 7. So do you know what I mean? Because part of the center thing about this trope is that they change, they like change the life, the meaning of his life. It's like they change him, they make him understand himself better, or they,
I think the only Bond women that fit in with trope number 7 are the ones that start off as villains.
Well, a lot of them are villains
we'll talk
because
about
you can't have a powerful woman with powerful female sexuality without it being fucking terrifying. And there's a really fun subtrope with that one too. But anyway, we'll talk about that at that point.
We've got a ways to go. But there is, as with anything, there is overlap.
Oh, sure, yeah. I would say the Marion effect overlaps with this one quite often.
Yeah. Yeah, because definitely she does go through the whole Marion effect. At first you meet her, she's a badass. Then she gets married and nothing. She needs to be rescued. And
she's a damsel in distress.
Damsel in distress. And you don't understand why, because fucking Anakin Skywalker's a douche, man.
Fucking douche nozzle. God.
Dude.
My editor actually, like, in her comments, she uses track changes for the comments and doing the edits and stuff like that. The comments on the side of that one part of that article, because I was like, hey, so why would a woman like as awesome as this fall in love with Anakin? No, it's not just because he's a Jedi. Just being a Jedi does not make you awesome. Sorry.
Right.
What's the reason? None. There's no reason. None. No reason. In all caps. And my editor was like, I fucking love you so much right now. She's like, thank you. Thank you. Someone said it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There is no reason.
None at all.
None. She wouldn't. But she's not a character; she's a device. So therefore, she's there to do that.
She's preordained to fall in love with him, no matter what kind of a douche he is.
Because that's her purpose.
Whether he's a douche nozzle, or a douche canoe, a douche kayak, a douche bicycle.
See, you were looking for a name for this one. You were looking for either a silly or rude moniker for this episode. It's the douche canoe.
The meaning of his douche canoe?
The meaning of his douche canoe. Oh, the douche nozzle is a device.
The meaning of his...
The douche nozzle is not a character, it's a device.
Douche canoe. Yeah.
The meaning of his douche canoe. That's it. We found it. We knew we would. The more we talked, the more we knew we would find it. And there it is. So there you go. Well done.
Yep. How far along are you on your bottle of wine tonight?
Oh, well, I just came from my brother's birthday party, so I have had a few glasses over there, so it doesn't really count.
So you're ahead of me.
Yeah, so I'm only like a glass into my bottle that I have at home.
Well, I don't know that I'm going to drink the whole bottle tonight anyway, since I was feeling rather kind of bloated today, and my weight is up only like a pound or two.
It's all water weight. You're getting your period soon. That's what happens to me.
Right, and I'm adding this. This is why I think BMI is a total bullshit thing, because I'm in this weird weight phase where, like, on one day I'm 189 and I'm fine. My BMI is fine. I weigh 190 and I'm overweight.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. And you
1 pound shift.
6'2", 6'3",
6'1",
6'3", 6'1". Oh.
6'1". Wow, thanks for the extra 2 inches.
I thought that you were 6'3" for some reason. I don't know.
I only appear taller. It's because of my towering ego?
Head. Yeah, it's because of your giant head.
Yeah.
It's because of your douche canoe. That's why.
It's because of my douche canoe. Actually,
no, it's just I don't often feel tall.
I have a douche kayak.
A douche kayak. Oh, sorry. It's a douche Kia. It's a douche Subaru if you're here in Boulder.
Yeah.
No, I don't often feel like I'm not tall when I stand next to somebody, and I often feel like I'm not as tall. So I just assumed that you were taller than that. That's okay.
I perpetually think that I am still 12 years old.
Why?
I don't know. I
mean, you have pubic hair, don't you?
Well, I had a few when I was 12. Anyway,
well, you start with it when you're 12, right?
Right.
We have gone way into the weeds. We have gone way into the weeds.
Yeah, we've taken a deep left turn onto this one.
Speaking of pubes, we've gone into the weeds, and
the meaning of his pubes. Wait a minute.
Lost in the bush. We're lost in the bush.
Oh yeah.
Well, what else do you think about this? I think that was interesting what you were saying about, like, paralleling the real world gender norms and sexism with this trope. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, like thinking of the economics of the whole thing.
Yeah, I need to think about it a lot more, but I definitely think there's the insidiousness of this trope is just ramped up when you take into account, the what it's saying to people in this particular economic situation that we're in these days, that we've been in since the 80s, since the Bush tax cuts, since he slashed the marginal tax rate down to the 30s.
That women being an interesting person or being a badass is actually not really true. It's just color to influence their man. kind of thing.
Well, I think in some ways it's like I said, I think I'm going to have to sort it out for a bit while, because it's just kind of, I was sitting thinking about it all day.
Sounds like another article, actually.
That's the thing, is that, we talk about these tropes, and I thought about this in a different way when I was looking on tvtropes.org, is that it seems like everything is a trope. Everything.
Uh-huh.
They turn everything. It's like you don't need to have a wide swath of evidence. This is why I asked you if there are other examples of this besides Padme and Arwen, because sometimes it seems like a thing will get an entry on TV tropes, and it's just what happened with one character.
Oh, I see. So that does not a trope make.
Right. Everything is a trope. Anything somebody doesn't like about the way a story is told becomes a trope, right?
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And so that's problematic in and of itself. But what's also kind of becomes problematic about that is that, and we've talked about this a lot in the last 20 years, is that story is intensely, fundamentally important to the human species.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We are
It's
a
central.
storytelling animal. We think our very first science was storytelling.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And we are kind of genetically, Edward O. Wilson talked about dual inheritance theory or gene culture coevolution. And there's not a storytelling gene, there's not a story interpreting gene, but we have throughout the millennia of human existence bred for people who look for and draw meaning from stories.
From stories, yeah. Yeah.
And so if we tell ourselves nothing but meaningless stories, then we create in the world a meaningless world.
Oh,
right?
Well said, sir.
Well, David Carrazon said it a lot better. He says, let us not forget that the world is created in language first, and everything that happens in it. My big famous, my obsessive quote.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We create the world by the stories that we tell ourselves, that we tell our society and our culture. Right. So
if it's all made of tropes, then...
if it's all made of tropes, and tropes are always bad or meaningless or problematic, what then what does that tell us about ourselves as a species? Mm-hmm. Now, we kind of have this approach at times that all tropes are bad because they've been able to be classified as tropes.
Well, and there's also sort of an odd, I think this stems from the early days of postmodernism, which is this sort of what I call the cult of originality, which is that if it's not original, that it's not completely made up by you and there's no one else who's ever said anything like it before, then it's good. If it's not,
oh my God, if you manage to pull that off,
there's no way. There's no possible way.
Then you are a fucking genius, and everybody else should just stop.
No,
but
I would say that's impossible. I would say it's impossible.
Fuck you. To whoever that imaginary you might be that would think that.
But there's storytelling, and there's recycling stories, and there's remixing, and there's telling old stories over and over again. There's that.
Right.
And there's a trope or a stereotype, and that's a different thing. That's a different monster. So some of these tropes that you're finding on TV tropes probably aren't actually tropes. They're just something that someone's like, oh, that's sexist, hey, or, something like that. What I'm trying to do with these 7 tropes is actually trace something that I've seen over and over again.
And that's the important thing. And how we can address those tropes and determine, I think it would be interesting to find productive versions of these.
Yeah, that was one thing I did.
Not problematic.
I've been told this needs to be a book. And if and when it is, that is one thing that I need to then go out and do, which is what I did not do with these articles. The articles are focused on describing and showing examples of the trope itself. But what I would like to do is to be like, hey, so here's a character that you might think falls into this trope, but it actually doesn't. Here's a character that has a similar story arc, but that is actually positive. That's actually really well drawn. That's really well done.
Because I think identifying tropes is a great exercise at times in classification and order.
Right.
But unless we take those tropes and link them back to society and how they have an impact on the everyday, then we're failing to explain to our audience why having this discussion is important rather than just, intellectual jerking off.
Right, exactly. Yeah. In one of these articles, I actually talk about my own experience instead of describing a character from a movie or from a TV show. I actually describe.
Isn't that the next one we're talking about? At 5?
No, I think 5 is the Mother Knows Best, right?
Oh, that's right. Mother Knows Best. So 6 is the one.
Yes, 6 is the one. Yeah,
6
one of the guys.
is yours. Yes. I'm looking
So
forward
I
to that one.
I have tried to do that, and I do want to write more about this, and I think that I have to begrudgingly accept the fact that this does need to be a book instead of just 7 articles, which will also be, I will of course be going from my own life because that's what I know, and just saying like, here's how this has impacted me, and here's how having these ingrained in our very skeletons of our culture affects the real live people that are trying to grow up in the world or are trying to, function in the world or whatever. So
and finding those mirrors in relationships, kind of, like I said, I would have to do a lot more thinking about, but I definitely sense and feel that there is a connection between this trope and our transition away from
the sort of nuclear family kind of myth.
Yeah. Well, not only that, not only the actual transition away from the nuclear family structure, but at the same time that we are forcing families to have dual incomes, we're also really hammering home the traditional gender stereotype that men are the breadwinners and women are the stay-at-home moms. So that now we have this weird kind of feminist infighting going on.
It's a it's a conflict
between women who want to have a career and a family and are guilted for not being stay-at-home moms. And then you have the women who are stay-at-home moms being guilted because they're not doing the career thing.
Right.
And you have both sides trying to say that both is really more feminist than the other. And then you have the women who do the stay-at-home mom thing, but are anti-feminist. And it's like, oh, that's great. You managed to find a guy that could support you. But what if you had fallen in love with a guy whose career choice could not do that and you were forced to work? Would you then resent him?
Or what if, sure. There's that. Or, what about all the myriads of single parents out there too?
Exactly. And
like divorce is huge.
Right.
It's way more common than marriage, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Or it's, what's the statistic about? See, here I am asking for research. I haven't done any fucking research. What's the divorce statistic? Is it like half of all marriages get divorced?
At least that was the case in the 70s and 80s. The way I see it is that, you have your articles and our discussion. This is a groundwork for other people to do thinking.
There we go.
And they should do the research, right?
And write the articles. And you should sit down and write the article about the parallels of the economics and the trope. I would love to read that. That sounds really interesting.
I've got my giant essay on when I talked about the meaning of story to the human animal.
Yes.
I've got that I've got to revise so that it can be broken up as standalone essays for this magazine this friend of mine is trying to get off the ground here in town.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I want to read that too. So see, listeners, it's
and then I've got the novels and
you take this discussion and you go run with it, right? That's absolutely true. That is very important. And this is why I talk here with you about it, and this is why I'm talking at Denver Comic-Con about it too.
Oh, cool. When is the Denver Comic-Con?
I don't know if I'm going to be presenting there this summer yet. I have not found out from them. You
submitted the proposal and they haven't accepted it yet.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Knock on wood. Sounds like they're interested, but I don't know. But for the last year, I actually took these. It was before I wrote these articles. I had just had the one article on my own blog about just kind of the overview of all the 7, and so it was really helpful. I talked to the Comic-Con people about the 7 tropes. They're like, okay, this is all really interesting and we want to read more. And so that's exactly the kind of thing. It's like, this is just going to expand and get more and more dialogue going. And that's exactly what it should be. That's exactly what it's for. Yeah.
No, it reminds me of, I think it wasn't Emerson, or maybe it was, wrote that essay, The American Scholar.
Again, we have under-researched talk.
Well, how can you research everything? It's just a free-flowing conversation.
I know. You have no idea.
About the site.
What's that?
How could I have known that I was going to be bringing up that essay, The American Scholar?
And I'm recording this on I'm Skyping from my phone, so I don't really want to
Oh, and it was by Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Screen. It was Emerson. Okay, good.
So Emerson's essay, "The American Scholar," he talks about one of his premises in that whole thing is that you can go to school and you can take the old crusty books. He says you can go to school and you can learn stuff and you can go into the old crusty books and you can just consume that knowledge and regurgitate it, and people will think that you're intelligent, but that's not real intelligence. His thing was that you should take all of this stuff that you learn and use it as the groundwork to come up with something new.
Mm-hmm. Synthesize
it and make something new. That is what the American scholar should do.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, they do think. That's why I used to be really jealous of those people that could read something and then, give you a nice, clean quote about it and seemingly off the top of their head and stuff like that. And when I get into arguments and discussions, I tend to, stitch stuff together and never quite remember a quote and generalize stuff like that. And then some jackass goes, "Well, I need citations." Fuck you. Here's my citation. Go read this book and go read that book and go read that book and go read that book, because I can't fucking give you a page number right now, you twat.
Do you want an MLA fucking format too, asshole?
Right. Oh, it drives me
or Chicago
batty.
Style. Which one?
Right. It drives me batty. Some people. There's actually an argumentative. I used to have them all on my phone as pictures, because son of a bitch, you just needed to have them around, and I've never really had a chance to use them. But someone took a bunch of pictures of referees from football games. And
it's the logical fallacy referee.
Right.
I love that guy.
And one of them, of course, is demanding too much evidence, or
yeah.
And that's one of the
circular logic guy is my favorite. I always do that whenever I have to teach comp. I always bring the logical fallacy referee up. He's great.
Right, like we have an attempted argument from silence player based their conclusion on a lack of evidence.
Yes. He's like, tweet straw man argument.
Oh, here it is. We have a continuum fallacy on the field. Player required unreasonable amounts of specificity. That's the one. Oh God, that annoys the fuck out of me. When people do that to me, it's like, really? Do you want me to bring my whole fucking library with me and show you everything I've ever fucking read? And when I make a general statement, you go, "Who said that?"
You will not be able to handle that.
Because I will fucking whip out my motherfucker. I will make you read, Emerson's essay. Then I will make you read every book I've read on gender. That's where I come to this conclusion.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah.
Read Edward O. Wilson. Did you read Edward O. Wilson?
Face with a fucking yeah. Exactly.
Oh,
yep.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we've gone way off base.
Lost in the bush.
But yeah, so it's,
No, we hit some good points. We hit some good bullet points. I think this one actually both like, yep, okay, boop, 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 yep, awesome.
How did we know we were going to end up at Emerson, right? I didn't know that. So fuck research. Just have a conversation.
Get lost in the bush.
In the bush.
Just have a glass of wine and fucking be as well read as fucking we are.
I'm not that well read. That's the thing we have to make very, very clear. I have a certain narrow specificity of knowledge.
Well, I mean, but you're well read. I mean,
I am read.
Okay, you've read a lot. You've read.
We have read a lot. Both you and I have.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's good. Was it good for you?
It's good for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
This was a good. This is, I think, my favorite one so far. Of this.
Oh, nice.
Of the ones we've discussed so far, this one is my favorite.
Cool. Why?
Well, I think because it came with the picture of Natalie Portman.
Oh, it was, of course, the one with her and her midriff was already torn asunder.
Yeah. Well, one, I tend to like, dark-haired women, and two, I really like the name Natalie. It's like one of my favorite lady names.
Well, and there's no lady parts and lady names.
Lady parts and lady names. I had a
See,
crush.
There's another one. There's another one.
On
There you
a
go.
girl in grade school named Natalie. Oh, I had a horrible crush on her. Oh. My second horrible crush. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What are you gonna do? So anyway,
I think it's your favorite because you parallel. You so easily paralleled it to what you're seeing in destructive patterns in real life.
Could be.
It's not just an abstract literary exercise.
True.
As much as the other ones were for you.
So our next one, of course, is Mother Knows Best, where we get to talk about Ripley and aliens.
We do. We also talk about Beatrix Kiddo a lot.
Yep. Sigourney Weaver
and
rocks.
Katniss Everdeen.
You know that Sigourney Weaver and I have the same birthday.
Oh, I did not know that.
We're both October 8th.
Hey.
Yeah, I like Sigourney Weaver.
That's my celebrity doppelganger. Everyone has a celebrity doppelganger. She's mine.
Excellent.
Which I am okay with.
No shit. Because she is a badass.
Hey. I only hope I can be as hot as that when I get to be her age, you know? I'm not going to complain about that if that happens.
Not at all. No.
No. Don't.
So Mother Knows Best next week.
Mother Knows Best.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Douche canoe.
Douche canoe. The Outrider Podcast is recorded by me, Jason Quinn Malott, and cleaned up by my badass producer, Heather Ann Eden. The songs Choose an Adventure and Break and Mend used in this series are by Wichita-based band Cartwheel off their new EP, Best Days, and are used by permission of the copyright holder, Kristen Chapman. You can get Cartwheel's EP on Apple Music and Spotify, so visit them at www.cartwheel.band.